I don't think anybody can work hard unless they like it. I was the least hard-working student. I was selling lemonade and shoveling snow and washing cars and selling baseball cards every day of my childhood because it was more fun for me than anything else I could do. Ringing people's doorbells and like ding dong.
Like, can I wash your car for $5?
Was like the greatest thing that ever happened.
Really?
What's awesome now with the internet is entrepreneurship is so much more creative. I think without the creative lens, you wouldn't have worked as hard if it was like pure entrepreneur. I was like pure, like I'm a salesman. I like it. I like the sales part. I like the operations part. Most people are stuck because they live within the means of their salary and they're like stuck in a hamster wheel. And the only way to get out is to downgrade your optics. Worse car, worse apartment, worse year or 2 or 3 in your trips and your nightlife. And I'm very empathetic that for a lot of people, they can't make that move.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because I need them for me, because I want to wake up every day and watch a video that puts me in a mindset to believe in myself more and go off and accomplish amazing things and attack the day. And I hope that this video does that for you as well. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Gary Vaynerchuk, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2 is build your brand.
The biggest companies in the world understand the value of brand probably more than influencers and creators. They don't understand where brand is being built. They think commercials and billboards and print ads and banner ads on websites and pre-roll intrusion ads on digital and dorky posts on social is building brand. And my point is perfect social or best social or strategic social is where brand is being built. And I think to your point, a lot of people in this community of creators and influencers, they're so transactional. Like everything is to selfish needs. How many followers can I get? How many likes am I getting? How much money can I get from this brand deal? And so it's very sales oriented. The reality is both matter. You know, like if you've built unlimited brand, but you don't know how to close that equity into a sale, well, you're going to go out of business. But if you're just a salesperson and you're not building brand, they're going to move on to the next creator, to the next person, to the next brand. And so, they both matter a lot, but I think that sales is just people that aren't great at brand. And what I mean by that is, when I look at the best personality businesses, Ryan Reynolds doesn't sell. He's a brand, and you just like, I just wanted Mint Mobile. I'm like, I've been on Verizon 100 years. I'm like, I want my when Kevin Hart makes a funny video, and he's got his tequila in it, I just want to support him. He's not sending me an email saying buy a case of my tequila. And so I think when you build brand, it's special.
Rule number 3 is be accountable.
How do we, as a society and also AI, grow and adapt to make sure that we're aligning with the humanity and also the social conversation and progress that we see, rather than AI just speaking to a white male?
I don't think it's speaking to a white male. The conversation that is fascinating about this is people are talking about, the inputs and how the data is being structured. I keep trying to remind people, everything has prejudice. There's nothing in the world that doesn't. I think the cool thing is that the blockchain and AI are open opportunities for people to create the data sets. And so it's not catering to white males, it's that a lot of white males have been working on the technology, right? So, I think this stems to much bigger infrastructural things. This talks about education. This talks about a million different variables that society has been struggling with since the dawn of society. To me, people are like, oh, we need to make sure this AI is not spitting out things that aren't balanced. I'm like, all of the content that the world is consuming is not balanced. There's nothing that's balanced. It's the nature of the flaw of the human. I think what's more interesting is, when are human beings going to finally start falling in love with accountability? Instead of us spending all of our time being mad at media and social media, influencers and algorithms, maybe it's time to start having conversations about humanity's capacity to take in multiple data sets and actually make decisions for themselves. Maybe the bigger issue is that we like blaming things that are exposing our truth.
Rule number 4 is embrace AI.
What do you say to people who are scared of AI? How can they embrace it and use it for their business?
By realizing they have no choice. If you're scared of AI, I have bad news. You lost. AI is not going back into some weird genie. You know, what do I say? I have no interest in confusing people. By the way, all these comments where, like, when I'm putting out AI stuff, they're like, oh, you're getting supported by the AI. Like, there is no AI Illuminati. I'm not getting supported by anybody in AI. This is what you all said to me a decade ago of like Facebook. You know, every time, nobody's supporting me. I want to be historically correct. You know who's supporting me? Me. I'm supporting myself by being right historically. And so it's not a very tough bet to think AI is going to be a big part of life. It's the easiest bet I've ever made. It's a profound technology. I'm a human being. I'm plenty scared like all of you are. Like, what does this mean? And deepfake videos, and I've got plenty of anxieties. I have anxieties about everything, just like any other human being. I just don't let them control me like so many people. They sit equally to my optimism. The internet scared people, cars scared people, tractors scared people, everything scares people. Social media scared everyone, you know, like, so there's pros and cons to everything. You can choose to make it a con and be cynical, or you can choose to make it a pro and be optimistic. You decide, but what do I say? I say nothing. I really don't actually care. I don't try to convince any individual person on this. I put out content to be historically correct, but like, what do I say? Nothing. Like, you don't want to use AI? Good. People didn't want to use the iPhone. They eventually did. I knew people that told me they wouldn't use the internet. They did. People didn't want to use email. They did. Technology beats you every time. All your hot takes always lose to actual technology. AI's actual technology.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5 is grow your social media.
Back to Megan, who asked in the comments, how do I get more engagement out of YouTube? I go, post more. She says, I am, but not gaining followers. Megan, the next thing you need to do is post different things, right? One of the things that, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and thinking you're going to get a different outcome. A lot of people, will make a video of themselves, especially in this industry, and they make 30 of them and it doesn't click. That's okay. Not everybody crushes on video. What you may want to do is flip the camera over, walk the house and talk. Maybe the visual of the house and your voice is the right concept for the content. So try different formats. Maybe you just do audio, no video at all, and then just have an image. Like, there's a lot of different ways to make content. Haley, post as many times as you can a day. I'm being dead serious. Now, posting 15 times on TikTok is crazy, but posting 3 times on TikTok and 3 times on LinkedIn and 2 times on Twitter or X and 3 times on Threads and 2 times on Facebook and 1 time on YouTube, like, you can get your 15 from more distribution. On a single platform, 4 is where you probably want to max out on.
Rule number 6 is experiment with technology.
If I'm a marketer right now,
Yes.
what the do I do with AI?
Probably not much. Like, you should be educated. You shouldn't say no. There's not a person in this room, given what they do for a living and where they are in their careers, that shouldn't be playing with AI probably on a weekly basis, given how massive of a technology it's going to be. That's just going to affect your life. Forget about your professional career. Not playing with AI today would be like the people you made fun of 25 years ago not going on the internet. Yeah. Like, it's really funny watching people deal with AI or the blockchain. People are so in love with they hate change so much that most people don't realize they've become their parents. right? The thing you made fun of your parents for, of like not knowing how to use email or not wanting to go away from the BlackBerry to the iPhone, or all the things that you've spent the last 30 years making fun of, you've now become. And so I would encourage people to play with it, because your personal subjective opinion of technology has no impact on technology and what it's going to do. And so I think that people should be playing with it, but there's a lot to go with AI. For example, all of us, if you're paying a little bit of attention, are aware that generative creative is going to be a very big deal. The reason for a lot of people in this room we can't go there yet is we all know that the copyright and trademark issues are looming, and big companies can't be posting that creative yet because there's liability. But that doesn't mean you can't start doing it maybe for some internal use to build decks and play with. So I would just say, this is a training wheels phase, right? And really, you should be doing this for yourself, because there is no outcome where this technology is not profoundly important. And I think that is the bigger issue and opportunity.
Rule number 7 is love yourself.
For everybody who's listening, because I've said that so many times, and I've read all the DMs and emails and messages for the last almost 20 years now, a lot of people just now, as you were perfectly saying that, said, but I don't love myself. And this is a very important thing for everybody to hear. This is something I spend a lot of time thinking about. If you are listening or watching right now, actually saying, I don't love myself, you have to remember that somebody else put that inside of you. Your mom or dad, most likely, or maybe a grandparent, they put that inside of you because they didn't love themselves. And, a lot of people get mad at their folks, and I try to remind them, your grandparents made your parents. There's always that next person in the family tree. And so I think that we're starting to get into more interesting, while everyone's like, social media sucks in the world, I'm actually watching and I'm like, I don't know. I think it's getting a little bit interesting.
Rule number 8 is don't judge yourself.
You run a lot of companies. You do a lot of things. You've got V friends. You got family. You're everywhere. You're here right now. Does everyone just need to delegate? Everyone's got to hire?
You got to judge yourself less. When you're juggling 30 balls, if 3 break, a father could judge themselves that, hey, you have a friend and acquaintance in Ryan, but that's not more important than a child. And you've decided to allocate 20 minutes to this at a time where you should probably be allocating it to that, right? To me, I'm not willing to judge myself and say that's a negative, because that's not real life. There's no such thing as perfect, right? And so what I think is super important is, first and foremost, for everyone who's operating, don't judge yourself when things go wrong. Literally right before, Ryan, the reason I was exactly on time and not 1 minute early to make sure you and your crew felt good was I had a text as I was setting up of a situation in my strategy department that's not going well. I'm aware that if I wasn't doing 7,000 things, that one little thing, which is a big thing, could be going better because I'd be closer to it. But then I wouldn't be doing 7,000 things. So this is very simple. It starts actually in a weird place, which is the judgment on oneself. You have to fall in love with micro losing to macro win.
Rule number 9 is foster a creative culture.
How do you foster a creative culture that needs to be responsive to results and not the cigarette smoking, I'm an artist creative that from yesterday?
That is a very smart question. No question, the biggest challenge. So VaynerMedia started 14 years ago. I ran a wine retail business for my father, and then I started the agency. I knew nothing. I've never heard of anything that I now know of in this industry. I didn't even know that media and creative was separate. And in 14 years, we built a company that has 2,000 employees and is a very large agency globally. And by far, the biggest challenge in those 14 years is to give creatives more self-esteem. It is stunning how insecure the creative directors of ad agencies are around the world. And the lack of humility and curiosity is devastating. And the retraining of all the creatives that we hire from the most iconic shops is extremely challenging. They'd much rather believe that their subjective opinion in a boardroom is right than black and white quant and qual data. And so, we do it with empathy, with a lot of training, with a lot of, for us, what's working is 3 years ago, we made a pretty substantial decision, which was every single creative globally would make creative every day. So our entire creative department globally actually makes creative every day. And as we all know, because we're in the industry, most creative shops are not in the business of making actual creative. They're in the business of making decks and pitching ideas, and then you then get a company to make the production. As we've been able to get these creatives to start making, it's been really fascinating. That has been the breakthrough for us, to answer your question. Because they are now living in a more merit-based world, they're starting to get more excited about it. Many quit. You know, people really want to. So we've done more Super Bowl spots in America in the last 4 years than any creative agency, which is like a brain twist for everybody because we're so positioned as social. But as it's happening now, and we have a very good culture. Like, actually, no. So we're rolling now. We get the inbound from Wyden and Crispin and Droga, senior creative people, and they all talk that to me when I interview them. They're like, I'm ready. I'm done with this industry. It's all. I'm coming. And when they come in their first creative meeting, when somebody who's 23 years old has a different opinion and they talk up, they're stunned. They're like, what the f are you doing talking? And I remind them, like, no, you just told me you were ready for this. They're not ready for this. It's much more fun when they just get to pontificate their, great ideas can come from anywhere, they like to say. But they don't live that life. And so it's a real challenge. It's one of the biggest investments we make. It's enormous amounts of training. Predominantly, it is therapy. And we actually make that. We really actually train that way. We put in a ton of time in the upfront hiring. We really try to tell people, we're like, listen, you're not gonna like this. Your opinion does not matter more. You make, and then and you have no idea how to make social media creative. So we're gonna train you. But are you really ready for this level of merit? And the answer is almost none of them are.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is discover your passion.
I feel so bad for people when a dream dies. And by the way, there's a small group of people in the world that it's around athletics. What about the majority of people who are straight A students or good students, and the dream ends the day you're done with college? You're like, oh, good grades in school means nothing in real life. Dreams die all the time. And so for athletes, I think you got to find another competitive outlet. I think the thing that really hurts athletes specifically is how much they enjoyed the competitiveness of it. And so that's why entrepreneurship and business has been so big. One of my favorite things about the last 20 years that entrepreneurship became a thing is it became a place that athletes can go when the dream dies, or when the dream dies out of retirement. Amount of athletes now that don't have to be in depression at 38 after having a great career, and what do they do with themselves? They don't want to golf. They don't want to coach. They don't want to be a sports commentator. A lot of them are going into business. I know a lot of these athletes, and it's been beautiful to watch, because I probably went to business because I couldn't be an athlete because they're close enough. You know what I mean? And so I think for all of us, whether it's sports or how I'm making this a bigger video, which is especially for all of you where you realize the dream is over, school doesn't guarantee you real life success. You got to reset, and you got to find outlets of what you liked. If you loved learning, maybe you should go into strategy and research and consumer behavior, because you get to be curious. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that. All I'm ever doing is trying to take empathy, gratitude, kindness, positivity, optimism, and create repackaging for it in modern society to help somebody see it. Because life is one big game of perspective. And if you've been raised by parents in an environment and have natural DNA that makes you look at something upside down, I've got to flip it. And when I say I have this enormous love and need for admiration that I've come to realize. Admiration will not come in the form of me making the most money. Admiration will not come in any other form than if I give so much more to you than I expect from you in return. I was gifted an ability of the gift to gab. I am creative. I understand attention graphs. I have work ethic. I have aspirations. All of that has created one big game where I feel responsibility to be able to get this message out in a way that won't get to people that can never become monks, or that won't become disproportionately high educated philosophical. I'm in the trenches with my style, but it's the same product.
Yeah.
And so 400 trillion to one was one way for me to get people to be like, do you understand? There's nothing any of us in this room will accomplish that is even in the galaxy of that we have a chance to do something.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. What are you going to complain about today that is even remotely close to never having the ability to have a life? Like what? What are you going to complain about? Like what's so shitty in your life? Like you've got the at-bat. Even if you're the worst ranked person, 7.7 billion in the world, you're born to slavery and genocide in a fifth world country where you're raped every day, starved, slaved, lose your parents, no love. The game of life actually still creates the rare potential for you to break out of that and go on to do something and then bring positivity to the world better than not being born at all. I believe that. The framework for me doing social brand building and building businesses is what's the brand stand for? What's the business objective? The next thing we do is we create 40 to 50 consumer segmentations, not 3, right? 40 to 50 consumer segmentations. 18 to 22-year-old males living in Bangladesh that are into esports. 21 to 27-year-old females in Tokyo making $200,000 a year. 40 to 45-year-old moms in Malaysia who have an affinity towards high fashion. Real specific consumer cohorts with real teeth, okay? Next on that is called PAC, platforms and culture. Like, do you actually understand what the platforms are doing? Next, which platforms are you creating for? You've now gone the whole way down. Now we're gonna pick Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And for me, every brand that's in this room should be on all of them. But this is back to allocation, where do their dollars go? So they can't, but they should, but they'd rather spend $8 million on a TV spot. So you lay out the platforms. Then you go to work. So now you created a framework. Now your creative and strategy team are ready to work. Now you start posting against the framework, right? You know what consumer you're going after. You know what you're trying to achieve in business. You know how the platforms work. So you know Facebook Reels is underpriced right now. You know that green screen headline creative is over-indexing on TikTok. You know. So you start making. Now the work really begins after you make. You have a person in your strategy team called a PCS, a post-creative strategist. Her and his job is to look at all the qualitative feedback. You have your analytics and media team look at the quant feedback. And you start making your machine smart, like a half-pregnant AI. The team gets smart through the work. You start looking at the proxies. When you've got a retail brand that sells in retail stores, you're running the media against holdout clusters to prove that you're actually driving incremental growth. If you have a DTC brand or an app, it's a piece of cake. You're just looking at the black and white data. When the creative goes viral or over-indexes its norm, it becomes the brief for more efficient and effective work. So now the virality, based on the consumer sentiment and intent and truth, becomes a proxy to your brief, not a strategist sitting in an office, going on Reddit for 4 hours, writing a brief. Then you do that forever and ever and ever. Your cohorts are an accordion. As you start getting affirmation that something's not working, you actually eliminate Malaysian moms 40, 45 because you aren't finding affinity. Your creative team hasn't hit the mark. On the flip side, while marketing to Indonesia gamers 13 to 15, you realize it's actually the female gamers 13 to 15 that are even more interested in the intent, and you create a new cohort to go there to double down on the truth of the consumer, not the audacity of the boardroom. There's a lot of you out there that are happy, that are successful, and one of the things that's happening is you're putting out stuff and you're being crippled a little bit by the comments and you get angry. And we've created this term trolls. I don't look at it as trolls, I really don't. A lot of my friends back in the day were like, why do you feed trolls? I'm like, because I respect other people's points of view and I want to learn from conversation. Like everybody now is just like trolls, 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 and any negative thing you get, people dismiss as hate, haterade, trolls. I read that shit. I read it because I would never want to become a caricature of myself. I need to make, I need to calibrate it. It definitely doesn't bring me down. I want to understand it. It allows me to adjust, and I have to adjust. We all have to adjust. I just think there's a lot of things going on in the system, but I really want to get people's minds more quiet because it is just one big game of, are you valuing other people's opinions or are you valuing your own process?
Yeah.
And just the validation from others is is a no-win game. And I don't know what happened. I mean, I know what happened. Parenting and circumstance and environment. In hindsight, my ability to navigate high school without peer pressure, which is what I did, straight up. Like, it's been fun for my high school friends to be hitting me up on Facebook and stuff of that nature, you know? They're just like, yeah, you really did do that. Like, I just didn't give a fuck. My failures are funny because I'm an immigrant, so I've always got I never do shit that's like gonna put me totally out of business. I always got a nest egg. I'm always on like 3rd and a half bait. Like, I'm never doing something that's like over the edge, and if this fucks up, it's like, you know? My biggest mistakes have been the things I haven't done. I referenced it real quick. If you go read my first book in 2008, Crush It, 2008, I thank my family and one random person, Travis Kalkinick, who went on to start Uber, who used to, when me and AJ started VaynerMedia, used to fly around like in Vegas and just hang out with us because he had no job. He was in between. Starts Uber. I'm investing like crazy on everything. He asked me to invest in Uber twice, and I said no. Because I just bought an apartment, I was a little less liquid. I thought it was a side project for him. I also thought Uber was like a rich man's game. Like, it was originally like a limo on your phone. So I was like, you know, how big is that gonna be? And I passed twice. We got in a little bit later, you know, so we did all right. But I mean, if I wrote my normal $50,000, $25,000 check, I probably left in the ballpark of 300 to 800 million on the table. So that's an L. And on some real shit, like, I don't even feel it, because what I've started to really learn about myself in the last year or so is I'm about the process, not the trophies. I'm just about the process. I love my game. I love my game so much. I want to win. I'd like to have that W, but money's funny, right? Like, anybody who doesn't have it thinks it's the key to happiness, and they're super confused, and then they say, well, easy for you to say you have it. And I was like, yo, I didn't have it for a long ass time. I lived in the villas in Springfield Avenue in Springfield in a apartment until I was 28, buying nothing, making 40, 50,000 a year, working 90 hours a week in a liquor store. So I've tasted both. So I made a lot of mistakes. I pass on all sorts of shit. I just don't know what the mistakes are because I say no so much because I'm so busy. What if that one meeting was with, you know? Make a lot of mistakes. And you didn't demonize it, but society is starting to demonize, like, live in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. There's this photo that went viral as like 4 years ago with the Pope, and everyone's taking a photo, and there's that like 88-year-old lady, and she's just looking at it, and everyone's like trying to make it to be this great thing, and I was like, she didn't have a phone. Like, why are we making letters on like, if I send you a really nice 3-sentence text tomorrow of like how much I enjoyed today, right? Which now I'm not gonna do because I've said it out loud, but why does putting on a piece of paper and sending as a note, because what? Because it made it seem like I put an extra 2 minutes into it. Like we're starting to do things where I think it's awesome that you chased around the butterfly. I think it's funny. I think it's funny and interesting, and like I don't know, like I don't want to stand there and just take in the butterfly. Like I think it's fun to chase it with the camera. That was just fun from a game standpoint. Butterflies move quick. Like that shit was hard. Like, you know, so like I don't know. I again, this goes to like the currents that we live in society where like right now, like everyone's like, just take it in. I don't know. I wish I had photos of me at baseball card shows. Do you know how pissed I am? Let me say this right now. Do you know how sad I am that I don't have photos from 1989 to 1992 at the 87 different baseball card shows that I have? Because I'd like to see them. I'd like to see them. So like, cool, I'm glad that everybody's demonizing selfie sticks and all this shit, but I promise you, in 39 years, while you were making fun of those people, they're gonna be thrilled to look at it, and their kids are gonna be very thrilled to look at it. And I'm super sad, because I don't have jack shit of my childhood. Like, my Throwback Thursday game is whack as because I got nothing. Because us Russians, we didn't really take photos. It's really easy to be authentic. Don't say shit you don't believe in. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you know why this is important, and you'll appreciate this. In a world where people are pandering to vanity metrics, you know how many people hit me up, they're like, Gary, I wanna be this, and I'm trying to do this on my social media, and I'm like, then don't put up half-naked pictures on your Instagram. And they're like, yeah, but that gets more likes. And I'm like, you're a f***ing idiot. Like, you just told me you're unhappy and you want this to happen. but you're pandering to likes on a platform that's not gonna be as relevant in a decade? Like, remember when people used to remember when you were in junior high and you got, or for you, like third grade? You guys are so young. For the older people here, remember when somebody took you out of your top 8 on MySpace? Like, that used to really hurt. It doesn't hurt as much now. What are the things that are needed to be successful in life? There's a lot of things that come to mind. A lot of what I think about is self-esteem and genuinely being in a good place with yourself, because you won't put yourself out there at the level you need to if you're insecure. And so I think a lot about self-esteem and self-love and a lot of other stuff. But the word that I want to talk about is the word curiosity. I think everybody here can probably sense that this Web 3.0, last year we defined Web 3.0 as crypto and NFTs. But I challenge that concept and I say, let's take a step back and realize Web 3.0 probably encompasses a lot more things. For me personally, it encompasses AR. For me personally, it even encompasses something that's been around for a long time, like QR codes, because I think it's a new functionality in pipes that matters for everyone here. It definitely involves VR, and we know that. And it clearly involves AI, which is going to be such a big deal. We, me included, we're very stuck in what we're doing right now. Meanwhile, this is probably the biggest era of change coming up since the invention of the iPhone accelerated social media in a profound way. I have a feeling that a lot of people here, you're not sure exactly every aspect, none of us are, but I have a feeling everybody can feel here that the next 20 years, shit's gonna look a little bit different. That between AI and AR and VR and decentralized servers, like it just feels like it's not the status quo that the last 15 years are. In that will be some of the biggest opportunities that you will ever see in your entire life. In 1997 and 1998, every internet company that went public was worth $1 billion with zero revenue. All of those stocks collapsed, but it didn't mean that the internet was not going to be one of the biggest inventions of our time. That's just blockchain. That's not even mentioning what's going on in AI. And in the last year, everybody here has been affected and blown away by Jasper or Midjourney or ChatGPT. All of us have tasted real AI, not fake AI like we were for the last 7 years. And it really caught everyone's attention. These things are going to converge together at scale. And so I ask all of you, please do not leave this conference without asking yourself, how curious are you? You know how many of you here have opinions about AI, yet you've never spent 50 hours really using it? You know how many people here have opinions about everything that's going on in new technology, yet it's because your friend told you or you read 2 articles? You didn't have the curiosity to go all in. You lead with no, sometimes you lead with yes, but very few lead with maybe. If you lead with anything from this talk, given how young this audience is, if you can fall in love with the concept of maybe, when faced with somebody telling you something you've never heard about before, or something new in your journey, which will be consistent for the rest of our lives with technology, if you meet that new genre, that new platform, that new technology with the concept of maybe, you will have a much greater chance to get out of the world what you want. And so I argue at scale that one of the biggest things to lean into within your own body going into the next decade is finding out for yourself, with yourself, where do you sit with curiosity? Are you a curious person or are you not? And how do you develop more curiosity? For me, the way I built more curiosity was I started surrounding myself with people that were more curious. And so I challenge you to really think about this because it will really matter. I grew up in an environment where my dad worked every minute to try to make it in the new world, and he eventually owned a liquor store in New Jersey. I was dragged into that when I was 14. And really from day one, I started doing two things that are interesting to me. I started doing a lot of UI, UX, which in the way I would say that was I started moving my dad's store around. I used to stand behind the register, and it wasn't that busy, right? Like, where I could watch almost every customer walk in and where would they go and what would they buy. And intuitive as 14, I would understand, like, why do we send them that way where we sell stuff that's not as expensive as over here? Like, really, in hindsight, a lot of this stuff in the last 5 years I've recalled. Even lemonade, when I was 6 years old, instead of standing behind my own lemonade stands, I got my friends to do it because I would literally walk up and down the streets of New Jersey watching cars drive by to try to figure out what tree or what post to put a sign on. So I've been truly intuitively chasing attention my whole life. As a matter of fact, that's gonna bubble up in a minute. One of the biggest reasons I push against television advertising and think it's grossly overpriced and overrated is not because I don't believe in the craft or a 30-second video, it's that I don't believe people are consuming them. Like that, I think that needs to matter. You could literally make the greatest thing of all time. It's kind of like the tree in the forest. Like, you're gonna spend 9 months making something that nobody sees, seems like a waste of time. World, let me explain to you for everyone who's like, these platforms make all the money and they're using me and I'm getting used. Let's just talk about it. Dustin, do you know if it does cost or does not cost money to put an ad in a newspaper? Do you think you can call a newspaper and say, hey, I'd like you to put a full page ad and here's what I'd like you to put and I'd prefer you charge me nothing?
That is not
possible. Right. Do you think I can call CNN right now and say, hey CNN, hey Fox, hey CBS, hey ABC, I would like to run a video in between your hit shows, a commercial, and I would like to pay you nothing for that? Okay, that billboard outside right behind you, do you think I can call that number and say, hey, I'd like to put up the vinyl that goes there to say, follow VFriends on social media and please charge me nothing?
Absolutely not.
Do you believe I can call Howard Stern's show on Sirius and say, hey, Howard, listen, you know how you read these things in between the show? And you're like, go to vfriends.com. Do you think Howard would do that for free?
Hell no.
Cool. Now, these social networks say, hey, we're open, create an account, post something, and something can happen. And it costs zero from us. This whole concept that these social networks have the man has used social networks for their benefit. I've built a humongous audience on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and I haven't paid those companies a single penny. And when I sell empathy and schmempathy and all this, like that, where does that come from? This is a ludicrous conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for decentralized social networks where you have to build your own audience.
Where you're not maybe, I guess, not relying on an algorithm to...
You post and people are there.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting access to people. People love to cry about things that they take for granted. When I was older, I was like, wait a minute, what? Email? I could just send email and not be charged? Twitter? Wait, so let me get this right. This is why I freaked out about Twitter. Back to buying stuff. So I get to post, people follow me, and they can share so I get word of mouth and distribution, and the platform's not charging me? And by the way, here it comes. Twitter's about to charge for and you know what everyone's gonna do? This bullshit. Why do we charge? Because you don't want ads. You don't want them to monetize. Like this. My data is being monetized is By the way, on the record, I'd be really sad if that went away. I like that most of the ads that I see have something of interest for me. I don't like the ads on television. I don't need diapers or tampons when I'm watching this. I don't need it. I don't need your beer. I'm not gonna drink your beer. I don't need that ad. I like New York Jets ads. It's a better experience when I'm targeted. The whole thing pisses me off. It really does. Not because I love social networks. I don't give a about. I could give a about social networks. I just don't like when people talk without a complete conversation. It's free. Instagram is free for you. So they monetize by advertisers coming to you. That's like television. You know who else monetizes your data? Television. You know who else monetizes your data? Newspapers. You're reading the Wall Street Journal, you turn the page, you don't want to see that full page ad of some financial service, but they know that if you're reading the Wall Street Journal, you might want financial services. I don't know, like people are very interesting to me. Because they're making money. They're making money. Or they're getting entertainment.
Yeah. No,
TikTok does not charge you for all that entertainment. Every kid on earth gets unlimited entertainment on TikTok for free. Meanwhile, they have to pay $20 a month or whatever Netflix. How much is Netflix now?
15.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Like,
I don't know.
I don't get it. Like it's entertainment for free. It's building audience for free. Like how do you think this works? I can't wait for decentralization when it's based on merit and not the algo and the audience is there. We'll see how much people reminisce about this time and what they complained about. To me, it's something that I'm pushing more clarity around, which is I want you to be happy.
And accountable.
Of course, well, the beauty of entrepreneurship is it's inherently accountability. Otherwise it fails. I do want people to be happy, and I actually think accountability leads to happiness. When you think the government's in charge, the media's in charge, Facebook's in charge, this boss is in charge, when you believe somebody else is in charge of your life, you immediately start the process of unhappiness. Accountability is the framework of happiness. It doesn't mean bad things aren't happening. It's not delusion to the macro injustices of the world. It's called accountability. My ambition 10 years ago stays true today. I want to buy some of the most nostalgic brands that have ever existed when the next economy collapses. So when this economy finally collapses, I want to go buy Kit Kats, Bubblicious, K-Swiss, Ralph Lauren. I want to buy brands, and then I want to be the CEO of it. And what I knew then was I understood small businesses, I understood Silicon Valley, I didn't understand Fortune 500 businesses. But I wasn't gonna go get a job, so I decided to start the agency because at that point I realized marketing was my superpower. Hanging out with all those Silicon Valley titans, why was I invited to the dinner? Why were they listening to me? It's because they were great at tech, but I really understood. One of the biggest reasons, forget about the current way people view Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg's deep understanding of human psyche was the number one reason we connected. I think I'm an extremely good marketer because I think this entire thing that we're at right now is an internal B2B ecosystem, and the only thing I pay attention to is the end consumer. I know so little about what's going on here. This is literally the first 3 years I was here, I only did this event. I didn't know anything else. You guys remember, Harriet just joined us to run comms from BBDO. She's incredible. I'm still asking her on the way here. She's like, we were finalist, what's it called? Shortlist. She's like, we were shortlisted for a bunch of stuff today. I'm like, I don't even know, I literally thought it was finalist. Like I still, Adam, yesterday we won a silver thing, and I was like, what does that mean? Like I still am so deeply unaware of what's happening here, not out of audacity, not out of disrespect. I actually love coming here, the vibe. I love hanging with you guys. I love this. It's just that everything I think about is the consumer. It's the only thing that matters. And that's why I believe that, and I'm humbled by the most interesting, or we're doing some of the most interesting things because we just see it different. We just see it different. And the way we see it is practical. So, the far majority of what you've already worked on, you would have never consumed. That's the truth. And I think that's my aspiration to come to things like this. Actually have a conversation about what the hell's going on, right? Like, creativity is amazingly fun. I think that we have to be very thoughtful that somebody's paying us to make something happen. I think there's a lot of audacity that seeps into this craft where it becomes about ideology and selfish behavior. I watch creatives and strategists make decisions all the time based on what they want to blow up a building. They want to meet John Legend. They want this joke to see the world. It has nothing to do with what the client needs, and definitely nothing to do with does the end customer care. I'm trying to get so much done in the 18 hours, 19 hours that I'm awake, that to me every second matters, and if I can hack it, like, I'm gonna do it. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of not spending time on the shit that doesn't matter or the stuff I'm not good at, but I'll spend 3 hours reading every comment because I'm good at looking at it and synthesizing it and then understanding what the is going on.
Right.
And so I think people think there's some smart way to do it. The smart way to do it, everybody, is to figure out what the you're good at, quadruple down on that and punt everything else.
Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk in the house. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Evan. How are you?
I am amazing. You guys know this man. He's got sneakers. He's got books. He's got merch. We're almost wearing the same thing. I don't know. It's pretty close. There you go.
Love it.
He's got wine. I drank all of mine. I was trying to find the wine, but we finished it, so we got to order a second round. And he's got a new book, 12 and a half. Dude, I'm so excited. Welcome aboard. Looking forward to chopping this up.
Thank you, brother. I'm really happy to be with you. It's good to see you. I hope you're well. Yeah, I'm really excited about this book. I was telling D-Rock and Ragav and some of my crew, May, I was telling her like this the other day. I was like, this is the first book that feels like Crush It since Crush It. And what I mean by that is, I think we all, thank you. I think we all know when we went further than our capacity. You know, when you like hold your breath 10 more seconds than you really believed you could underwater, or you just did an extra set in the weight room, or you just, you know, you emotionally parented better that day than what your consistent high level is. I feel as though what's unique about this book for me personally is I'm incredibly proud of all my books. They've all done extremely well. I mean, every day I get a DM or email about Jab Right Hook and how it helps somebody. The last book, Crushing It, was really a continuation of the book that I mentioned, but I knew when I wrote Crush It that it was my first album. You know, like when you have your first album, for a lot of artists, the reason they are one album players is you have your whole life to write it. You know, I had my whole life to write Crush It, and I wrote it at a time where it was very obvious to me that the world is changing and people can make money by doing what you like. What I wrote in Crush It, that was became the biggest truth in our society, and I'm very proud of that. This book feels the same, because much like when I wrote Crush It, and if you go read the early Amazon reviews, people are like, yeah, you're gonna make money being on YouTube. Like it's really funny to read and look back because it is 12 years ago and the world was different in 2009. I think what's really interesting about this is a book that was written and people are gonna read it and be like, I don't think the things that I believe make somebody an alpha business person and are the competitive advantages are accepted in our society today. I'll give you an example. I don't understand why anybody should ever verbally dress down an employee in a meeting, ever. I will never, I do not believe that there is ever a time to completely make somebody feel lesser than in a meeting aggressively amongst others for any reason whatsoever. I also believe that 98% of the world doesn't even think about what I just said or necessarily agree with it because it's been accepted in business, and I don't think it should be. And not because I'm foofy and I'm like, it's because I actually think it's detrimental to the actual success of the business. What's interesting about what I'm starting to understand about myself is I have a lot of points of view that may seem like a non-entrepreneur and like a non-exec, right? It sounds more like an ideology or somebody who's never been in business, like has this like dream that it could be like this. And in return, I'm in it. I'm incredibly successful in it. I have a lot of people that I've observed who are incredibly successful in it that subconsciously and consciously believe that that kindness and good behavior and all these things are the foundation of success. And I don't think that's something we're talking about. And I'm at a place in my career where I have a big enough platform. I have enough gray hairs now where I have clarity on this. And I wanted to write this book about traits, and I called it 12 and a half because one of the biggest ones, kind candor, is something that I've struggled with. Gary Vee, in content on an interview like this, definitely on stage, he's really great at candor. Gary Vaynerchuk, the executive, when he thinks D-Rock is not doing a great job, dances, tries to use optimism. Like, I find any way to get him there other than sitting down and being like, D-Rock, you're really not doing this well. This is a problem, because I always thought that would make people fearful, and I hate fear. And I was very vulnerable in this book of saying, like, yo, this has been a real problem for me. It's a half for me. You guys might have halves on self-awareness or kindness, but I, after 20 years, took the subconscious, because I always knew, but I couldn't get it here. And I have now, in the last 3 years of my career, blossomed even more aggressively last 2 years because I'm getting better at it. Oh, by the way, my kind candor is nowhere close to my kindness or my curiosity or my tenacity. And so it's I'm really excited about this book. It feels very different for me. And once it gets into hands, I think it's going to be a moment similar to Crush It. But that moment, I was at a zero, kind of like from the world knowing me, and that became my bump. I'm not at zero now. And I think the thoughtfulness and the clarity on the nuances of my thinking that is sometimes lost in a single half clip on Instagram, or, that's what I'm excited about. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
The book is called 12 and a half. We pinned the comment there. YouTube, check the description. We're going to link it up there. Dude, I was so excited. You low-key dropped it on somebody's podcast. Said you're working on a book on EQ. And I remember running to my computer, sending you an email with 1,000 exclamation marks to say, dude, we got to talk. I'm so excited. How can I help? How can I support? I bought 108 copies. Thank you. So I'm excited for them to be shipped. And here's why I'm so excited. You've been talking about EQ forever, since early days, Gary Vee show, saying I hope they develop a test for EQ,
yes.
dig me out of the grave and test my bones because I'm all-time great on EQ.
Knowing that.
But then when people would ask you hey, how did we do it? You never had an answer. You couldn't answer the question back then.
It was really hard. It's how do you be beautiful, right? And there is plastic surgery, and is that actually beautiful or not? As a guy who hates makeup, I don't love the modern way of what beauty is defined. But yeah, it's how do you be fast, right? I always, you can work on speed coaching, but I wasn't ready. To your point, I really love you for that question. I wasn't ready. I knew I could speak to its importance. In this book, not only do I talk about what curiosity is and why it really matters to business, which I don't think is talked about enough either. This book was wild for me. It was perfect. COVID got me into my feelings in a way that I can't when I'm running, right? I had the time. I had the perspective. I just was in tune at a different level. And, things emerged as I sat and tried to put it together. I really challenged myself. Not only do I stand up what they are and why they're important in business when it might not be obvious, I also create scenarios, what ifs, that are very specific that I think will help a ton of people. But then third, and what I'm proud about, to your point, is there's an exercise for every one of them. And they're pretty wild. They're pretty unique. And it's still hard. And I don't know if I nailed it. I'll give myself a 7 or 8. But that's better, to your point, than not attempting it at all. And some of them are pretty clever and I think are going to work. And I'm excited to see people doing them in the wild, these exercises that are in the book.
Yeah, I love how you've been over the years dropping some nuggets: kindness, compassion, empathy, kind candor, etc. And now it seems like they've all come together in this book, which is I'm so excited. We got to read this. We got to share this. Let's spread the word. I'm so pumped for you.
What's even weirder is I started working on this book in my head, and I got to remember when were we filming it? November, right before, right? Good. So this is right. What's even wilder about this book is that the NFT thing happened after I wrote the book. Okay, good. So we did the book before I realized what NFTs were and stood up VeeFriends, which is now my new vehicle to share these good things that I've always had in me. Gary Vee has been the vehicle of compassion and kindness and empathy and curiosity and humility and right? But Gary Vee, the vehicle, for example, I think humility is one of my greatest strengths. I would argue that nobody that consumes my content sees humility, because in my communication of my content, I'm pure conviction and passion, which feels the reverse of humility. The only people that see my humility, even if you looked at D-Rock shaking his head, he's not doing it now, but like, I know you are. That's why I tried to get you. Like, my inner world is actually fascinated by my humility and the fact that they know that nobody sees it. And how do you talk about humility? Like, hey guys, I'm humble. Like, there's no way to land it when you talk about yourself. But I'm completely convinced. For example, do you know why VeeFriends is a smash? Because I mix curiosity with humility. I was curious. I saw it. I'm so busy. My time is so valuable that it would have been very easy for me to say, I don't have the 100 hours to do this, to like really get there. But it was my humility that says, if I up, I up, but I got to see this, curiosity through. Most people, right? And you know this because your career has ascended, are like, am I going to really spend 150 hours on this that I don't have? And if it's a zero, I gave up all this other stuff, because people value transactional money too much and not lean into legacy, innovation, curiosity. So it's a really interesting thing that VeeFriends came along, because here's 12 and a half. And I'm like, ooh, I'm taking my emotional intelligence to the next level, like conversation. And now I have VeeFriends, which is 100% the transition of my career, from me being Hulk Hogan to me being Vince McMahon, from me being Mickey Mouse to me being Walt Disney. VeeFriends is going to create a scenario where I don't have to be the vessel anymore of these things that I believe in, which is great. Here's why. I don't land for everybody, Evan. I don't land. It's devastating to me that some people dislike me, let alone think that I'm not qualified or good. And I understand why. The way I communicate is going to turn off a percentage of audience, but Patient Panda might not turn them off, but Empathy Elephant might not, but Accountable Ant may not. And the fact that now, not only did I push myself further as Gary Vaynerchuk to stand up these very positive traits that can be the alpha winning traits, but now I also have an entire universe of characters that are going to take the baton for me and do a much more efficient job of teaching people these incredibly important traits that are not pushover, you get walked all over, you suck, you're a pansy. No. We've had it completely reversed in business world.
Well, shout out to VeeFriends. Jonathan Garcia, he's in my Discord and he's watching here too, made a point to come to the Discord to say, I just went live with Gary Vee because I bought the, whatever the one was where you get to have the Zoom session. He's like, I didn't know where else to share it, but I just went live with Gary on Zoom. It was amazing. So you're definitely creating the ripple effects out there. Listen, you mentioned Vince McMahon. And in 2009, I asked you, who is your favorite entrepreneur of all time? And we made these trading cards, and Vince is on the front, and there's Gary on the back. Kind of hard to see, but there you are. From 2009, we raised $170,000 for entrepreneurs to help them grow their business in Africa. I'm curious, Vince, you love the storytelling aspect and the IP and all that. Who, if you were going to make some cards of the top 3 to 5 people to model for kindness, empathy, the 12 and a half, they don't even have to be entrepreneurs, like leaders, politicians, religious, anybody. Like who is the 3 of the 5 we should be modeling?
Cass Lazaro. This is Mike Lazaro and Cass Lazaro, specifically Cass. They built a company called Buddy Media. The reason I can answer this is I started VaynerMedia in their conference room.
Yeah.
So I got to watch her be an HR-driven COO. See, and you might, you're so, first of all, I'm so humbled by how many nuances you know about me. means you've consumed enough to know. So you probably also know, I could, for a long time, consistently said, I'm an HR-driven CEO. It was another way that I was talking about this, but I hadn't gotten to the level that I'm talking now. You know, even Vince is hard for me because I love Vince and Walt Disney from the storytelling creation of characters. But when you ask me this question, you know, I don't know Vince or Walt Disney on how they treated their employees or their partners. I just don't. Notice where I went first. Cass Lazaro, I don't think is Kass. I don't think that's a name that most people on this call video stream know about. Mm-hmm. I can only say Cass Lazaro because I was in the beast of the belly watching her actually care about her people and the people. But I don't even know Cass all the way because I was only so close by being in that conference room for a half a year. But I had enough meetings with her and listened to how she talked. Now, did she execute against that? You know, my intuition's yes, but I don't fully know. It's almost an impossible question for me because the only answers I can really give you is Wanda Pogue, my head of strategy, Claude Silver, our chief heart officer, right? I can tell you the people that I've watched navigate it here. You know, Lisa Buckley, who runs my LA office. I know what she's about. I know how she rolls. When I think about 12 and a half, this is a very simple game. Who are the most humanitarian alpha business people in the world? And again, this is where it's why I say alpha. I'm talking about something that the world thinks is a contradiction. Nice guys finish last is something I believe in zero.
I love it. Listen,
I believe this. I believe this in my soul. When people say, Gary, my kindness is taken advantage of. I'm like, your kindness is not. Maybe your inability to be candorous is. Maybe you're trying to manipulate a situation and act kind to get what you want. There's a lot underneath there, but we have these things. I just don't think that people think being empathetic is an alpha business trait. I don't think people think kindness is the foundation of business success. I actually do. And that's the argument of what I'm putting in this book. And why and how. And the examples are wild. There's one example, D-Rock, you probably remember, where I talk about what you do when your partner of 20 years stole money from you. And the answer I give is a off-speed pitch. And I'm curious, I'm dying to see what's going to happen.
Dropping soon. Guys, 12 and a half, YouTube again, link in the description below. Go pick up. I have 108 copies, so you guys got to go pick up a copy yourself. Listen, I got to ask you this question. So
you were paying attention and you know you're getting something airdropped. And so you were very strategic. I'm very proud of you.
Actually, so I am getting something airdropped. Somebody on my team, Drew, who was a fan, I was traveling that day when you made the announcement and the drop. And I came home late. I was exhausted. And he's like, you got to get on this thing from Gary. It's like, okay.
Hey, I apologize. First of all, big shout out to Drew. There's somebody, I'll give you one, Mary Kate McGrath. She's in the comments. She says, kindness drives success. This is a great one for the answer. Mary Kate McGrath is somebody that I would make a sports card of for 12 and a half. Why? Because she worked with me, for me after I bought Pure Wow. She was the head of editorial. She's moved on now to become a successful COO. I'm just glad that I saw her in the comments because she was adored by her team, but she was a businesswoman. This wasn't about giving entitlement or coddling everyone, but this was coddling everyone in the moment they needed to be. My mother, she coddled me when I needed. She punched me in the face when I needed. There's that balance. And I think we think too black and white. It's kind of like the political system, right? We've gotten so extreme that it's either this or that when it's always a piece of both and everyone's so caught up. So I'm glad you were in here, Mary Kate, another person I could speak to.
The 12 and a half trading card, dude, you need help? We'll do it. The 12 and a half Heroes trading card series to put some exposure and shine a light on the winners. I love it, dude. Okay, I got to ask you this question. In your 20s, you talk about a story when you are when you're in a tough spot, you go into cocoon when you're angry at your team. At least that was the story. So in your 20s, there's one time you had to leave work at 4 o'clock to go home and sleep because you were such a deep cocoon.
No, that was yes, and I love you again. That nuance, real quick, was because we lost the state of Texas and we lost so much revenue, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was like a big death blow. That wasn't about the team. What that might be mixing with also is a guy that I was incredibly kind to and gave a lot of opportunity to stole an ungodly amount of money in stealing product. That was the only other time. I actually dealt with that pretty well. Back to 12 and a half, guy steals hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of wine. He shipped it to himself. He like manipulated the pretty hardcore system we had and like got it there. And my immediate reaction was, I hope that everything's okay with him. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, my dad's immediate reaction is, I'm going to put him in jail for the rest of his life. I remember the meeting like yesterday. My dad's like, jail, jail, jail. That's all he kept yelling, jail. I'm like, Dad. I'm like, we know this dude. He's been here for 7 years. Like, this is a newer phenomenon. Look, here's the data. It's been 14 months and that hurts and it's been a lot of money, but maybe there's something wrong. So that's just a for instance.
So getting upset, like if you're upset at something and you go into a cocoon, is that still something that happens? And if so, how do you deal with it? Like, because this is so selfish for me. Like I struggle with it too.
When you're a leader, I think the number one line on a Bill of Rights of a leader is you must eliminate fear from your team. It's why kind candor really with me. When I had the realization 4 or 5 years ago, where it went from subconscious, because I always knew in the back, but you know how it's hazy and then sometimes it gets clear as when it got clear as that my inability to be candorous to people actually created fear in my companies because people didn't know if they would get fired out of nowhere. It was the lowest point of my professional career because I realized I had failed in my ambition to eliminate fear. The surface level and the majority of the energy of my companies was lack of fear because I would go into cocoon, I would put on my shoulders, but there was this underlining subculture of fear, normally by people who were underperforming because they felt that they were underperforming. They knew too, subconsciously or consciously. But that was a big deal for me. So just going back to this, the first thing I do when there's something scary is I block it. 99% of the time, I was built for it and now I have reps. I can take it, convert it, and lead. When it's extreme, I go into a cocoon. When COVID happened and the first week, tons of clients saying they're not paying. And the quick, 2 weeks later, my CFO says, we're not big enough or small enough to get any government help. I went into a 24-hour cocoon. I really thought. I walked in my parents' woods and thought and cocooned it because I don't want to project any negative fear. I believe that there's so many managers and leaders who the second they get something negative, take it out on their team. They're a funnel for it. Back to why people undress people in meetings. Their client is making them scared, so they're yelling at their team because that leader's not a leader. They think those people work for them instead of they work for them. I believe I work for every person out there.
And do you think the cocoon is a good strategy or something you're working at getting better and faster at?
The cocoon is still awesome. Adding kind candor, once I analyzed on the other side, was the addition that I had to do. And really, the kind candor never came from a cocoon situation, AKA something very bad's happening. I'll block it and lead the troops. It was actually far less silly. It was a real vulnerability. It's kind of like, the elephant that gets a little hangnail and you're like, how's that elephant? Those cartoons in the 70s and 80s. I should have never well, listen, that's unfair. I grew up in a way, DNA-wise, parenting and circumstance and the way I naturally navigated that really demonized confrontation. And I've refined it now. Undressing somebody inappropriately in a room is very different than not being able to go to somebody in a separate meeting, sit down, and respectfully and kindly deliver critical feedback. But I viewed all critical feedback as negative because most of what I saw with critical feedback in my youth and around what I saw was delivered so poorly that I was unable to dissect the vessel delivering the feedback from the value of feedback.
You've talked a lot about how the closest people to you, that's the thing that matters the most. As long as they're healthy, happy, you're good, right? I mean, business thing doesn't matter. How do you think?
Hey, you want to see something awesome? Look what number 1 is on the traits.
Yeah, there you go. So, okay, so if D-Rock dies tomorrow, sorry, D-Rock, we're just role playing. If D-Rock dies tomorrow, he's laughing at him. So D-Rock's dead tomorrow. How deep of a cocoon does Gary go into? And what do we not hear from you for a week? Like, what happens?
I think D-Rock's more like a 24 to 48 hour silence. Look, this is real talk. D-Rock is a top 50 person for me, top 100 person, top 70, 50, 40. He's not my 10, 11, 12 family members. And like, it's just the truth. When it comes to the business world, he's definitely in that top 25. So he falls into that 40, 50 range. It's real life. How did D-Rock die? Right? You know, like that matters. How do I feel at peace with it? Did he get terminally ill and he was in the hospital for a month and I was too busy and didn't see him enough because really I was just protecting my own feelings because I loved him so much and I didn't have the strength to go see it and just like made subconscious, and now it's clearly conscious because I'm able to talk to it, behaviors that I was like too busy. Like, I think there's a million variables that go into something like that, but let there be no confusion. I've had a lot of good things happen in the last year professionally. You know, VFriends has been an iconic success for me and has probably really established me in a different place for myself. Forget about the market. And when I tell you, Evan, it's almost as if it didn't happen. It's almost as if it didn't. I don't care about business. I don't. I love it. It is my great hobby. Business is my great hobby. It's why I love it so much. It's why I have so much energy. If people who love boating, sailing, skiing, golfing, tennis, cooking, watching movies, playing video games, that's how operating companies are for me. It is my hobby. I've been able to reconcile that. Oh, that's why I did lemonade and shovel snow. It wasn't that I was hungry or I didn't have money. It was that shoveling snow was more fun than sledding. And so the D-Rock scenario that you brought up, it would completely take over everything else. There would be nothing else in that week, 2 weeks. And then it would also be a pellet in my soul that would be a reference point to every hard day professionally. Because I would, in 7 years, when a really business day happened, I would say, but my dear friend D-Rock's not here to film it. So what am I complaining about?
Final question, because I know we got to wrap up. People often say, I wish I had a final chance to talk to somebody before they pass. And I think this might be a cool way to actually show 12 and a half in practice. So D-Rock is going to die tomorrow. This is still a scenario. What do you want to tell him and tell the world here before he goes?
That he is an incredibly beautiful soul and that I root for him extremely heavy to be happy, and that he made a lot of people really happy in a lot of ways, both with how he enabled me to do it and how he did it himself. And that is a lot more than most of the people that ever walked Earth ever did for others.
Gary Vaynerchuk, ladies and gentlemen, the book is called 12 and a half. I got 108 copies. Check the description on YouTube. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for $20 a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like Gary Vee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Tom Bilyeu, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Everyone thinks of changing the world, no one thinks of changing themselves. Very famous quote. And you can change yourself. The brain is plastic. You can learn well into adulthood. And once you identify what your Kung Fu is, what that thing is,